it's now more probable at this point that Bitcoin's going to capitulate soon. If price is going to avoid the more probable scenario of strong downward price action, this is roughly what you're looking for. Above the red line, before the red line crosses the origin line, and it would come back down exactly to test both as support. If you don't see something similar to what I just showed you happening, then you need to know that the more probable scenario is very, very likely getting ready to play out, and it's going to mean strong downward price action. On Friday's price analysis of Bitcoin, I gave reasons why there was a statistical likelihood of a significant bounce up and off of the weekly 10 exponential moving average, and also in the beginning of the video gave an exact failure point or how price would move relative to an upward resistance if that statistical likelihood did not come to fruition and reflect in reality. Because a statistical likelihood doesn't mean it's going to happen. Let's dive in and review what that was. If somebody were deciding to enter positions down here, one would be looking for hesitation of Bitcoin to get back above this weekly 55 because it could easily get rejected, which you would scramble out of your positions at a profit. That would be what I'm looking for the next couple days here, is specifically price to get above the weekly 10, come up, and I'm going to really focus in on a 5-minute chart, 30-minute chart, whatever. I want to see price's reaction, small candles to this line, because if it looks like it's going to, get rejected by, I'm going to get out of those positions. Now to current price, that video was made right there as the small candles were coming below the red line, which is the weekly 10 EMA. I am on the 5-minute chart. I'm going to zoom into that area. And in the beginning of the video, I noted that price needed to come down a little bit below the red line, the weekly 10, in order to fill the CME gap. It did. I expected a bounce for price to get fully above here. However, if I were to get into positions at that point, which I actually was, I was going to observe how price reacted up here closer to the blue line, which is the weekly 55 EMA. And if it were going to fail it and not be able to get above it, studying the very, very small candles, I would scramble out of my positions. And for folks newer to my channel here, I've been making videos of cross bad, this is bad, capitulation imminent for quite some time relative to the master origin line that I have drawn on my chart. It's the most important single line in all of Bitcoin price history. This is price's third time going below that master origin line, and historically that would greatly increase the chance of a capitulation. It could happen in March. It might hold off until April. And in my Friday's video related to that, I kept expressing I am midterm timeframe very bearish because of all these bad crosses, but there was a statistical likelihood of one more bounce before it rolled over. Now that that statistical likelihood didn't play out, it rolled right over, most likely related to Russia-Ukraine related global events. My short-term outlook is definitely bearish, which now is in line with my bearish outlook from the midterm timeframe on a 4 to 6 week timescale. Let's dive into the charts and see what Bitcoin needs to do in order to undo all the bad that's lying ahead with these nasty bearish crosses that could signal capitulation. Let's see how price would work its way up and out of there with the specific mentality that it's now more probable at this point that Bitcoin's going to capitulate soon. That is the case, but this video, I'm going to show you different ways that Bitcoin can undo that statistical probability. Therefore, this video is not going to be making a call that Bitcoin undoes this. Rather, it will cover an improbable scenario. Therefore, you can take this improbable scenario price paths and know that if I don't see something like this happens, then the more probable thing will happen that Bitcoin's getting ready to fly down, and fly down really hard. Hopefully you find this valuable. Let's get it.
Hit the like button
and subscribe,
or else let's go. I'm on the 1 hour chart going back to price action from mid-January to current price. The master origin line is the thicker solid line. All the other lines represent the trading channel that Bitcoin has established over roughly 10 years of price history, which we've covered extensively on my channel. Now that price has gone below this blue line, it looks like it's going to come up and get rejected and come at least down to 37,800. And again, I said at least, could wick below there because this bounce right here did not touch a bounce point. Therefore, because this is not a suitable trampoline for price to bounce out of from a statistical standpoint, could it just go straight back up to the origin line from this point without hitting a certified trampoline? It's possible. However, it's improbable. What looks like it's going to happen right now is you're going to get a rejection somewhere up around 39,200 or 300, 39.2 or 39.3, and price will come back down to 37,800 in order to potentially bounce. And that is where the improbable scenario of Bitcoin undoes this and races up, that's where the journey starts. And again, everything I'm about to show you will be the improbable case because I think it's more likely that Bitcoin's going to capitulate sooner than later. To get an idea of the more probable case is that you have the weekly 10 ever approaching this origin line, and it's going to squeeze price below. And when that squeeze happens, mixed with an external stimulus from global news events, whether it's the price of wheat going up throughout Europe and Africa or the price of oil skyrocketing, that's all the stimulus that's needed during that cross. And you can see here, we're on the daily chart going back to January of 2020 when Bitcoin was around see how this is the same line and the same trading channels? See how it behaves pretty similar within here? Look, price came up and actually did bounce off of a non-bounce bounce area here, it did get back above the origin line and then back above the weekly 10, exactly as the weekly 10 EMA was getting very close to this point. However, look at the distance. I'm going to measure the percentage distance that the weekly 10 was from this point when it decided to start racing up. It was about 7% away, and price was able to undo it. But the current setup is the weekly 10. I mean, it's literally close enough to just be considered crossing. It's 2.5% away. It looks like Bitcoin's attempt to undo this squeeze play, the red going below this white line here, it looks like that was its last chance. So what looks like to be more probable, before I go into the more improbable scenario that this is avoided, is that price will, at most bullish, come up to the origin line somewhere closer to 40,600 or wick up maybe as high as 41.8. Either get rejected by the weekly 10 EMA or rejected by the origin line and then get stuck under here and then capitulate. That is what the more probable scenario is going to look like. In the more bullish case, it could just roll over from here and capitulate. That is possible too. Therefore, this is a more bullish case. Before, you would see something like this, a bounce off of here, come up, get rejected, and then start moving down heavily. Somewhere in the second week of March, that's when it starts rolling over for the last time, and then begins capitulating late into mid or late into the second week of March. And focusing in on where this weekly 10 EMA would be, you could essentially just draw a quick line of where this would be, and that would be squeezing price. Price comes up to meet this intersection, gets rejected, and that is, in my opinion, the most probable case. This cross is indicating that there could be a capitulation event, very likely within 10 days or so. Now, what's price going to look like in the event that it undoes this, which is more improbable? Let's dive in. Turn on your camera and microphone and ask me questions directly and live straight to my face up to 8 times a week. Links to the Discord community within the description section of all my videos. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at cosasverdes with the number 2, cosasverdes2. If online communities are not your thing, but you want exclusive content above and beyond what I offer on YouTube, click the join button that's right below this video, and another video will pop up describing your options to you. I'm going to go back to the time where Bitcoin did avoid this before then actually capitulating in news related to the coronavirus, which was a stimulus. Back to January of 2020, price was able to get back above the 10 and ended up failing. But if price is going to be able to undo this nasty cross, it's going to do something similar to this effect. So I'm going to zoom into the 4-hour chart, and you can see here that price was able to get a bounce roughly around this last line, but a little ahead, which would be similar to price bouncing about now. It did bounce off of a no man's land, came up shy of the official trampoline. Specifically went above the master origin line, had a consolidation correction for several days, and then specifically got above the red line before the red line crossed this, and then used it as support simultaneous with the origin line. And I think that same thing would happen if Bitcoin is able to avoid this capitulation stimulus event. It needs to get above the weekly 10 before it crosses this origin line, then come back down and use both simultaneously as support, and then rock and roll. Something to this effect is what needs to happen. Let's go ahead and take a fractal of that. Now I've put this on current price, and I'm going to extend this red T10 EMA of the weekly for it to be going something like this. And you can see here in general how price in this fractal would get above the red line before the red line crosses the origin line, and it would come back down exactly to test both as support, and in general, maybe with a few wicks below for several hour candles, but in general, it's using the origin line and the weekly 10 as support. If price is going to avoid the more probable scenario of strong downward price action, this is roughly what you're looking for. Will it move exactly like that, candle per candle on the 4-hour chart? No, but in general, that is the behavior of price relative to the weekly 10 and the origin line. And if you don't see so here's the main point. If you don't see something similar to what I just showed you happening, then you need to know that the more probable scenario is very, very likely getting ready to play out, and it's going to mean strong downward price action, something of which I've been warning for quite a while. And now that we have a global negative stimulus to make this happen right when Bitcoin's already weak and at a crucial point, it makes it even more probable, folks. And what's going to help you out even more if you're new to the cryptocurrency space is if you click this playlist right here, learn how to set up a chart with a 28-minute trading view tutorial and learn basic buying and selling strategies. And if you're not newer to crypto, click this video right here to get some content on how and why price moves the way it does. Click the circle in the middle if you're new to my channel. You just get 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐜𝐸 worldwide. Peace.